Jin Woo, known as the weakest hunter in Korea, was an E-rank hunter whose abilities barely differentiated him from a regular civilian. His physical sturdiness and recovery rate were only slightly above average, which hardly qualified him to fight monsters in dungeons. Yet, because of his pitiful lack of power, Jin Woo's body bore the constant reminders of battle, often covered in fresh scrapes or bruises from his last near-death experience. Despite facing grave injuries time and again, he kept returning to the hunter's life, risking his life in a profession he neither excelled at nor particularly enjoyed. The work was perilous, respect was elusive, and the pay was meager. But for Jin Woo, walking away wasn't an option. Behind his steady participation in each raid was a haunting reason. Jin Woo needed money, desperately. His mother lay in a hospital, her medical bills piling up month after month, demanding hundreds of thousands of won that he had no other way of earning. In his mid-20s and lacking any specialized skills, Jin Woo found himself trapped in a profession that barely paid enough to cover his family's needs, let alone support any aspirations of a different life. If it weren't for the health insurance provided by the Hunters Association, he would have gladly given up his hunter's license and pursued a quiet, normal life. But every raid was a reluctant commitment, a necessary evil he braved for the slim chance of a decent paycheck. On the day of his fateful raid, Jin Woo joined his fellow hunters who had gathered near the gate, a portal to the unknown dangers awaiting them. Most of the hunters were already acquainted with one another, having frequently collaborated on association-organized raids whenever gates appeared. As they arrived, they exchanged friendly chatter over the free coffee offered by the association. Some hunters, like Park, who had recently returned to hunting due to the arrival of a second child, spoke of financial pressures, with a few of the more seasoned hunters reassuring him that hunting raids, though risky, were one of the few avenues for big money. The group held mixed feelings about this raid. Although an association-organized raid was generally considered safer, the absence of large guilds hinted that the raid might yield a low-rank gate with minimal financial reward. Despite these concerns, seeing Jin Woo arrive reassured the group. Known as the weakest hunter of all mankind, Jin Woo's presence was ironically a comforting sight for them. His reputation had spread far and wide, not as a powerful ally, but as an indicator of an easy job. The association typically assigned Jin Woo to the most straightforward, low-risk dungeons to avoid any liability from his inevitable injuries. Knowing that Jin Woo's participation practically guaranteed a safer, low-stakes mission, the hunters let go of some of their reservations. The wintry air stung as Jin Woo waited for the raid to begin. Feeling the biting chill, he rubbed his nose, still adjusting to the atmosphere. Even a simple pleasure like a hot cup of coffee seemed to evade him, adding to his day's misfortune. Eventually, the time came to enter the dungeon. Jin Woo joined the group of nearly a dozen hunters, each prepared for the fight ahead. As they ventured into the dungeon, he fought as best he could, but even against the low-rank monsters, he struggled, suffering injuries that required immediate healing. Joo-hee Lee, a skilled healer, treated his wounds while expressing her quiet frustration. She worried about Jin Woo's dangerous hobby and advised him to be cautious, fearing that one day he might face a battle too perilous to survive. The raid progressed smoothly for the others. The hunters were able to dispatch the beasts with relative ease. However, for Jin Woo, it was another challenging and draining fight. He managed to kill one creature, a minor triumph for most hunters, but a near feat of survival for him. After receiving his meager reward, a single E-rank essence stone worth barely enough to cover a week's living expenses, Jin Woo was once again reminded of the vast wealth gap between hunters of different ranks. While a C-rank stone could fetch tens of millions of won, his spoils amounted to little more than the price of a meal. Just as the group prepared to leave, one hunter discovered a hidden entrance deeper in the dungeon, a rare occurrence that stirred both curiosity and concern among them. This secondary gate, known as a double dungeon, presented an opportunity, but also an unpredictable risk. Song, the most experienced hunter among them, quickly assessed the situation. With the gate still open, he concluded that the true boss lay beyond this hidden entrance. Though protocol advised reporting such findings to the association and awaiting further instructions, Song and several others weren't willing to wait and risk forfeiting the rewards to another group of hunters who might arrive and claim their kill. A debate ensued. The prospect of a higher payout tempted most, and after some discussion, they decided to put it to a vote. Each hunter took a side, either for or against entering the unknown depths. When the votes were tied, all eyes turned to Jinwoo, the deciding vote. Though he knew entering the double dungeon would be perilous, the mounting weight of his financial burdens pressed on him. He thought of his sister, who would soon need tuition money for college, a dream he had given up for himself. Driven by desperation, Jinwoo raised his hand, casting the final vote in favor of venturing into the unknown. With his decision sealing their fate, the group descended further into the hidden dungeon, following the narrow, seemingly endless tunnel with Song leading the way. The dim light from Song's summoned flame flickered, guiding them cautiously through the dark. They kept their nerves steady, but an undercurrent of unease settled among the hunters as the path grew longer, and the shadows stretched deeper around them. Kim, who had been cautiously keeping time, reminded Song that they'd been moving for almost 40 minutes. The hunters knew they would have to find the boss within the next 20 minutes or risk being trapped inside the gate after the boss was defeated. Each step was one closer to the unknown, a treacherous descent that none of them fully understood. As Jinwoo and Ju-hee lingered toward the rear of the group, a sense of unease settled over them. The earlier injuries had left Jinwoo weakened, and Ju-hee, with her limited combat capabilities, clung close to him. Jinwoo rubbed the back of his neck, feeling a pang of guilt. He knew he'd pushed her into coming along, into enduring the dangers of another raid, and he hated seeing her concerned, especially knowing the risks she was taking for him. Ju-hee's frustration eventually bubbled over, and she admonished him, reminding him of how many times she'd patched him up from close calls. Injuries to his wrist, thigh, and chest that would have been fatal if her healing abilities hadn't intervened. Her anger was heartfelt. It was her worry that drove her to criticize him. But beyond her scolding, Jinwoo felt something deeper. Her loyalty and the bond they'd shared through countless raids. She was a rare talent, a B-rank healer who could have chosen safer, more prosperous paths. Instead, she had continuously helped him, tended to his wounds, and showed him kindness despite his seemingly reckless persistence. But despite their serious conversation, Ju-hee's frustration softened, and in an unexpected turn, she asked him to make it up to her with a dinner invitation. Her words left Jinwoo momentarily speechless. He glanced at her, noting her playful expression, her slightly flushed cheeks, and the glimmer of her youthful spirit, realizing she wasn't just a fellow hunter, but also a dear friend, someone who, despite everything, genuinely cared about him. Their moment was interrupted by a sudden stir within the party. The members had reached a towering set of doors. The hunters crowded around, muttering in confusion as they stared up at the imposing doors embedded into the rock. The presence of doors this far into the dungeon was unusual. They didn't match anything typically seen in previous raids. Standing before them, the seasoned hunter Song evaluated the situation, a steady resolve hardening his gaze. Though the others wavered, Song's unshakable confidence helped push them forward. The veteran hunter placed his hand on the door, urging the party to follow his lead. Rumors began circulating among the hunters, a hint of excitement breaking through their earlier fear. They whispered about other hunters who had stumbled upon double dungeons, each supposedly containing riches and rare treasures. Their desire for wealth began to override their instincts, a wave of greed and anticipation sparking amongst the group. Each member, including Jinwoo, weighed the risks against the rewards, imagining the possibilities that awaited them beyond the doors. With a push, the grand doors creaked open, revealing a vast, dimly lit chamber within. Jinwoo grabbed Ju-hee's hand, urging her forward as they crossed the threshold into the unknown space. The room that lay before them was massive, ancient, and silent. The walls stretched high, vanishing into a dome that loomed over them like the inside of a cathedral. Moss grew along the cracked stones, and an earthy dampness filled the air, adding an eerie weight to the already oppressive silence. As they ventured deeper, the torches that lined the walls sprang to life, each one igniting as if some unseen force sensed their presence. The orange glow cast dancing shadows, creating an ambiance that was equal parts awe-inspiring and terrifying. The atmosphere was charged, the silence amplified by each cautious footstep. The room felt like a temple, a sanctum of forgotten deities. On one side, the hunters' gazes fixed upon a massive statue, dominating the far end of the hall. It sat, gargantuan and imposing, its features worn and weathered, yet unmistakably designed to inspire awe. The statue's face held a sense of distant malevolence, its expression frozen in an eternal scowl. It resembled the revered gods depicted in ancient myths, an embodiment of power and mystery. The hunters hesitated, rooted in place by a shared feeling of apprehension. In the eerie quiet, a few of the hunters started to examine the space, their attention drawn to the various stone statues that lined the walls. Each one was uniquely crafted, clutching different objects. Some held weapons, others held books, instruments, or even torches. The statues' designs and stances suggested an almost lifelike presence, as though they were guarding secrets, awaiting orders from their colossal master. Song's sharp eye caught a peculiar sight near the room's center, a large circle etched into the floor, intricate and ominous, marked by symbols he recognized as some form of ancient divination. It wasn't something he'd seen in other dungeons, adding to the strangeness of the place. His gaze moved to another hunter who called him over, pointing toward a statue that was different from the rest, a winged figure holding a stone slate. The hunters gathered around, their curiosity piqued. Song read the inscription aloud, deciphering the words chiseled into the slate. It spoke of commandments, the rules of the temple. As he recited the ominous phrases, a feeling of dread washed over the party. The commandments hinted at rituals and demands for loyalty, each one more foreboding than the last. But it was the final line that chilled them all. Those who fail to obey these commandments shall not be spared. A loud, echoing slam shattered the silence, causing everyone to turn in alarm. The doors they had entered through were now closed, sealing them inside. The hunters reacted in fear, their instincts screaming at them to flee. One hunter bolted toward the door, attempting to wrench it open in a desperate bid to escape. But before he could react, one of the stone statues wielding a mace sprang to life. In a brutal, swift motion, it struck the hunter, ending his life instantly. Blood splattered, staining the floor as his body collapsed. The room erupted in chaos as the remaining hunters realized the statues around them could move, each one potentially as deadly as the one that had killed their comrade. Jinwoo's mind raced, his pulse pounding as he grasped the horror of their situation. If these statues could move, if they all could strike with the same lethal precision. In that moment, Juhi tugged at Jinwoo's sleeve, her voice trembling. She pointed toward the massive statue seated on the throne. Its eyes, previously hollow and lifeless, now seemed focused, staring directly at Jinwoo,